Okay, great. All right, so welcome everybody. I have done this presentation for several years here at the Midsummer Conference, and this is certainly a different experience, as Libby said. My name is Skip Rochefort, and I'm a faculty member in the School of Chemical, Biological, and Environmental Engineering at OSU. There's my email address right there. So I just want to say at the outset, if you have any questions that you don't get answered today, I do a lot of work with high school students and have for many, many years. I teach the first year class at Oregon State University in chemical, bio, and environmental engineering. So each fall, I typically have 200 to 250 students in my class that are really just coming out of high school. So I have lots of experience looking at the college to, the high school to college transition. In addition, I have a lot of research with undergraduates, and you'll meet 3 of my undergraduate research students today. So we can talk about all the different aspects of you know, what you can do when you go to college also. Today's talk is going to focus on what you can do now to get into college, to choose a college. And typically I'd be standing in front of you and I can look in your eyes and see who's sleeping and who's not, and then try to make it interesting. But I'll do my best over Zoom to keep you entertained, okay? This is an unusual time. I taught all of my classes last term in Zoom format. Probably the worst term of my life in terms of teaching. Probably one of the worst terms of your life in terms of doing school also, but hopefully things will get better from here. So let's get going. I wanted to start by telling you a little bit about myself. And by the way, I'll give this PowerPoint to Libby and she'll post it. So if there's anything you want to go back and look at, you can. What I want to say is to tell you a little bit about yourself. One of the themes of today is collecting information and also knowing who's giving you that information or where that information comes from to make decisions, okay? So I was born on the East Coast. You can see a little bit about my life there. And then my academic history. I had a long academic history. I liked being in school, so I stayed in a long time. One thing I do want to point out, if you look at the academic history, is I went as an undergraduate to the University of Massachusetts Amherst, and you'll see that I grew up in Rhode Island. By the way, Rhode Island's a state. It's the smallest state. It does exist, okay? Not many people know where it is. But in the old days, which was 1972, 68 to 72 in there, we didn't have the web. We didn't have all of these social media platforms. We didn't have anything, right? All we had was ourselves and books and libraries. So when it came time to go to college, I had very little information. And basically my counselor said, hey, you should be a chemical engineer because you like chemistry, math, and physics. And, you know, you should apply to Worcester Polytechnic Institute because that's where I went to school. And so Worcester Polytechnic Institute, if you know anything about it, is a really good school. So I applied there. Of course, I applied to University of Rhode Island, which was my home state school. I applied to UMass Amherst because my cousin went there, and I thought, well, she likes it. Maybe it's a good place. And I also applied to MIT because somebody told me it was a good school for engineering. And so I was a pretty decent student in high school, so I ended up getting into all those places. But as we'll see a little bit later on, sometimes other things come into making your choices. So I'll come back and talk to you about why I ended up going to UMass Amherst as an undergraduate. I've had a lot of jobs starting when I was 12 years old. I was cleaning toilets at the restaurant, okay, and have worked my entire life. But I highlighted the one in red there, which is I really found my life path pretty late. Maybe you guys know what you want to do, but I certainly didn't know. And so in 1975, I started doing research in a lab and got really excited about doing research and working in the field I'm in right now, which is polymers. So a lot of people like to plan stuff. I'm not a planner. I just let things happen. And I've been pretty lucky that things have sort of happened in good ways for me. But I also want to make the point that don't stress out too much about planning everything, especially now, right? We don't know what's going to be happening in the future. Just make the best of the opportunities that come around. The other thing I'll say about that position at UMass that I got in that summer is the only reason that I took it was not because I had a strong desire to do research, was because my girlfriend at the time said, "Hey, I'm staying at UMass for the summer, and be good if you could stay." And I go, "Oh man, I need money." So I walked into my advisor's office and I said, "Do you have any summer jobs?" Then he looked at me and he goes, "Who are you?" Because I had never seen him before. Okay, this is the old days. We didn't have to see our advisors. Anyway, I lucked into that position and basically lucked into a career that I have been following my entire life. So don't worry about planning everything in your life, especially in these days. Okay. I've been at OSU 27 years. Okay. It seems just like yesterday that I got here, but I've been an ACE mentor for about 23 of those years or whatever. Probably one of the saddest things about this summer for me is that I had to cancel my summer program, which was called Summer Experience in Science and Engineering for Youth, where I've had over 1,000 people participate in that program, high school kids. And I don't have any ASE interns this summer, first time in about 20 plus years. They wouldn't let us bring high school students into the labs, and I don't do computer simulation stuff. So I really couldn't take any students this summer. In fact, they just let us into our lab with the students that you'll meet today 2 days ago. So it's been a weird, several months here. I've been doing research for about 40 years, all in polymers, and that's not really too relevant today. I'm not going to talk about my research area too much, but one of the big things we're working now is on ocean plastics to fuel. We do work in biomaterials and all other kinds of stuff. And the students you'll hear from today, two of them have worked, actually all three of them have worked on a really cool project called menstrual health and hygiene that we're hoping will be funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, where we're developing a biodegradable, compostable feminine hygiene pad for underserved countries. And we're particularly working with Botswana. So that's been pretty great, at least at the end of this year, to have them working on that project and making some progress there. Okay. All right. I love colleges. Okay, I'm a college junkie, and one of the themes today is going to be to collect information. So here's my daughter when she was fairly young, visiting this is her first college visit, the University of British Columbia, way back when. Okay. This is us in 2014 when she was thinking about going to college. That's Einstein in the middle, and then my daughter's on the left. And this is she was thinking about Cal Poly. She didn't end up going there, but we visited some schools. So I love visiting schools. I've visited a lot of schools, and I guess what I'll say right at the very beginning is I have opinions on a lot of things. And remember, when you talk to people, this is not, written in stone, right? Everybody has their opinion. And one of the things I want to make sure you understand today is if you ask me about, say, Cal Poly, I have an opinion. If you ask me about Harvey Mudd College, I have an opinion, but it's only an opinion, right? And in the end, you need to make the decision. So anyway, we visited Cal Poly. Then she decided to come to OSU. That's another long story, which we won't go into. But anyway, she graduated. Okay, I was very happy, and I was able to be on the field with her when she graduated. And then she just graduated this year from public health at OHSU, PSU School of Public Health. So now she's a Master of Public Health. And I just got to see her the other day for the first time in a while since she graduated, and she's very happy to be doing that. Okay. Here's to show you that you can succeed. So these are three women that all worked in my lab. Kayla on the left-hand side, graduate in chemical engineering, and she's at E&J Gallo. She just got moved up to a management position. Talia's in medical school. She's in her just finishing her third year of medical school. And Christine on the right-hand side works at Intel in Chandler, Arizona. So this is a picture I took of them at our house for their graduation party and gave them some little gifts. But this is to show you that there is an end, okay, to when you get to college. There's an end. It's not always the easiest thing, but there's an end. I've done work with women in engineering for many, many years. I started the Women in Engineering program at OSU, so this was especially gratifying to me. I wanted to show this picture here. Yes, that's me. Nobody thinks it looks like me, but that's me on the top there. And this is in, I can't remember what year this was, but in the maybe late 90s, when I could tell from this, 2000, the year 2000. Those are my first 4 ASE interns. And the reason I'm showing you this is those were my first ventures into the ASE program in 4 different years. So the guy on the left is Jason Hauer. So this guy here, he was my first student. Okay, he went on to get his PhD at University of Washington in chemical engineering. This was Adam Wielander. He was from Central High School, also got his BS in chemical engineering at Carnegie Mellon, and went on and got a PhD at University of Wisconsin. This is Annie Guy. She went and got her chemie degree at Stanford, and then went on and got her PhD in bioengineering at MIT. And then this is Hai Lee, who got her bachelor's at University of Wisconsin. And then actually now she works in patient services in Wisconsin. So I hit it pretty well on my first 4 students, right? They all were, first off, I converted them all into chemical engineering, which was great. Okay, that's part of what we want to do. Wanted them to be engineers, and none of these people come into the lab really knowing if they want to be engineers or what they want to do with their life, right? So I was pretty happy with this picture here, okay, and the results of this. I want to tell you a story before I get into this, and the story of 2 of those people. One is Jason Hauer, so that's JH, and the other one's is Annie Guy. Okay, so if we start with Jason here on the top, Jason was valedictorian of his class, senior class president, blah, blah, blah. He was accepted to Stanford. Okay, he really wanted to go to Stanford. Okay, he got a $3,000 loan from Stanford because he had a high FAFSA. So we'll talk a little bit about FAFSA, and you'll learn a lot about FAFSA in a little while, but that's the federal something or other, how to get money from FAFSA, from the government. He was awarded a full ride to OSU. So what did he do? We had a long talk. Okay, he could have spent $60,000 or $80,000 a year going to Stanford and been in large debt, or he came to OSU, completely paid, never paid a dime the whole time he was at OSU. Got his PhD at the University of Washington, took a faculty job for a while, and now works at HP. Has a family, is very happy. The same time, almost the same time in the lab, Annie Guy was there. She's from Sheldon High School. She was also a valedictorian and merit scholar, so was Jason. She was accepted to Stanford and OSU. So they were applying at the same time. They both got accepted. They both got accepted to Stanford. Annie got a full ride to Stanford. Basically, she paid like $1,000 a year or something like that. And she had a research internship guaranteed. She had a very low FAFSA. Okay, so the FAFSA thing really determines a lot about what the college economics look like. So what did Annie do? Well, she went to Stanford, had a great time, went got her PhD at MIT, did a postdoc at MIT, and now she's working at a startup company in San Francisco, and apparently is very happy. I don't know, I haven't seen her in a little while. So my point here is, one of the things I want to tell you about here is to do your, or talk to you about, is to do your research on colleges, but there's different paths for different people, and you have to find the path that works best for you. Okay, so we'll talk about these things, but my point here is that 2 people, pretty much identical in a lot of ways with their high school careers, went 2 different paths, and both were very successful. Okay, so there's not a unique path that every person's going to follow. And I think that's an important thing to remember. My whole goal today is to help you to reduce stress in your life. Okay, that's I want you to understand, how to look at colleges and how to find the right college, but also to not stress out too much about it, because I see many high school kids stressing out. Some of the information I'm presenting today, you've probably heard of U.S. News and World Report, America's Best Colleges. I don't like it very much, but there's some information in there, and you can get it. Okay, it costs money. I don't like college rankings, but I will show you today some information from the National Association of College Admission Counselors. This is free, and I really like this website a lot. They have a lot of information that's really unbiased, and that's really important. A lot of what I'm going to talk about today is how do you get some unbiased information. Okay. All right. So college rankings. Let's just talk a little bit about rankings. Okay. So the thing about anytime you put a ranking on something, you got to say, well, what is it that you used as your factors? Okay, and so this is what U.S. News and World Report uses as their factors. And one of the biggest things is peer assessment. And what that means is that the presidents of all these schools get together, they pat each other on the back, and they say, "You're great, you're great, you're great," and that's 25% of the rankings. Okay, and then if you look at the other things like retention rates, they have good retention rates because they're highly selective. Okay, and they have a lot of resources because they tend to have places like Harvard and MIT have huge endowments, and Stanford. Okay, they're very selective. Okay, so they select very few students. So for instance, a state school like Oregon State University, acceptance rate may be something like 90%, while Harvard might be 8%, MIT might be 8% or 10%, something like that. Okay. They have money to spend on students, and they get a lot, and so that all goes into the ranking. So the question is really, of those things that go into the ranking, what's going to affect you the most? Okay, so graduation rate might affect you. Okay, that's a good thing. Retention rates might affect you, but a lot of these things are more about the institution and not you. And so that's one of the things you need to look at when you look at rankings is how are the people that are assessing this and making these decisions, what are they weighting? What are the weighting factors? Okay, that's always an important thing. Now, what do these college rankings really mean? Well, this is back to the National Association of College Admission Counselors. Here's the website for that. And I really like this website. And so if you look at the things in blue, it's like, should these rankings have any influence on what college you choose? And the short answer is no. So they have a little bit of a blurb here. I just kind of took this, I sort of lifted this from their webpage actually. Why is that? Why should that not matter? Well, because they don't look at key factors like learning outcomes, student engagement, things like that, which will be paramount, will be very, very important in your undergraduate career. Okay, so they say the rankings shouldn't matter to you. But rankings aren't completely useless, because in the process of ranking, like for instance, U.S. News and World Report, there's a lot of information about the schools themselves. Okay, so you can look at that, you can get that, but then you got to take some time and say, what matters most to me? And again, that's going to be the theme for today is what's going to matter most to you, not what matters to your parents or your friends or whatever. Okay, so college choice, okay, the school you go to has to be the one that's the best fit for you. I've had many students that have gone off to other schools and eventually come back to Oregon State University because it felt better to them. Okay, and so I'm not saying that that's what you need to do, but you need to be comfortable in the place that you go, and that's something that you have to try to assess. Okay, so what the colleges look at when they try to make some choices? Okay, so this is again from the National Academy of Admissions Counselors. The number one thing they look at, there's a bunch of stuff they look at, but 80% of your grades, 80% of what they look at is grades in your college prep classes. So that's pretty straightforward, right? It's like, do a good job now, and you're going to have a good chance of getting into decent schools. Okay, there's other things they look at, but that's 80% of the colleges said they look at college prep classes. Okay, less important is the SAT and ACT, and as you probably have heard, there are some schools that are even dropping these requirements now, and actually I hope they do. There's no data really that shows that the SAT or ACT scores reflect your ability to be successful in college. Okay, so hopefully a lot more schools will be dropping these things. So bottom line is do well now, and the thing you want to look at is my checklist timeline for applying to colleges. Don't get caught at the last minute. Those of you that are juniors right now, you should be looking at this, right now. Look at this checklist, see what you should be doing. You should be doing some research. And even sophomores, it's not too early to do that, okay? Or sophomores going into junior year, juniors going into senior year is what I mean. Okay, so again, I'm pushing this National Association of College Admission Counselors websites because what I found is there's a lot of useful information, and it's completely free on that website. Okay, all right, so let's get down to now, that's how we were collecting information. Let's get down to where do I look for information? Okay, so you got to do your research. One of the problems you have right now is there's so much information out there. Okay, you can click a button and find out about anything, right? You have, I don't even use social media, but I know my daughter, I asked my daughter what she uses, like Instagram, what is that other thing? Twitter, all those other things, right? Now I heard TikTok's a big thing, although I'm not really sure what that means either. But anyway, there's a lot of information coming at you. What you need to do is to be able to go through that information and make sense of it, right? So one of the big things is know the source. As you know, we've heard false news so many times in the last 4 years that, you know, we're kind of immune to it right now, but there is bias in a lot of information that's out there. So where do you get your information? Okay, well, there's high school counselors, teachers in the library. High school counselors tend to have their favorite schools. You probably already know that. Okay, so when I first came to Oregon State in 1993, I found out that a lot of kids from Crescent Valley High School were applying to Brown University. Now, I found that kind of interesting because I grew up just 10 miles from Brown University and I have cousins that have gone there. But I was thinking, why does somebody at Crescent Valley High School think they want to go to Brown University? Well, it turned out one of the counselors really liked Brown University. And so I found all of these students, these good students applying to Brown University, not knowing exactly where it was, which is in Providence, Rhode Island, not knowing what the area was like, and not knowing how much it cost, you know? And so you got to be a little careful with your counselors. My daughter, when she went to the counselor, I think the counselor said, maybe you shouldn't go to college or something like that. I don't know. It was kind of interesting. There's college guys like Peterson's and whatever, okay? There's a National Association of College Admissions Counselors, which is free. That's why I highlighted it in blue there. There's the web. So there's college homepages. Now, when you look at college homepages, remember, nobody's going to make their college look bad. Every college looks great on the homepage, even when you do the virtual tours. Now, virtual tours, Alyssa will talk a little about this. She likes virtual tours, but they're not going to show you a crappy dorm room, right? Every dorm room is going to look great. So, but, you know, it's a good thing to do to see, you know, for instance, if you want to go to Arizona State University and you like trees, you don't want to go there. There's no trees on campus, okay? So things like that. I mean, some very, you know, not academic things usually normally, but other things about how the place feels to you. And then everybody and their brother and sister is going to have some opinion on where you should go to college, right? So family, friends, people on the street, you can talk to them. You know, talk to your grandfather, your grandmother says, hey, go to my alma mater, blah, blah, blah. And you should consider all those things, but you should consider who's telling you about this and what their bias is. So it comes back to that red on the top of this. You want to do research, but you want to know the source and the bias. And then you need to do the very difficult task of saying, how does this apply to me? Okay, so that's an important thing. Now, how are you going to pick your colleges to apply to? There's like, I don't know, there's thousands of colleges in this country, right? How do you decide where to pick? Well, you got to make a list. And, you know, I'm an engineer and we do analyzing data all the time. So I love lists, okay? And when I talk to high school students and I sent you some information, I think Libby passed it along to you, a couple of worksheets that I give to my students in the program in the summer. Right now, I'm talking to a lot of kids about graduate school and I have them do the same list, okay? So what do you want to study? Okay, that seems obvious, but for instance, if you want to study engineering, you really can't go to the University of Oregon. They don't have engineering, okay, just in this state as an example. So make sure you know they have the field of study you want at the place you apply. Location, this is a big deal, okay? Where do you want to go? Do I want to go to University of Wisconsin? Great school. It's in Madison, Wisconsin. Probably nobody knows where that is, but it's in the middle of the country, okay? It gets really cold and it gets really hot and they have black flies, but it's a great school and I love it. It's a great place, okay? The setting. Do I want to go to a school that's in the middle of the city like NYU or Columbia, where when I get out, or Johns Hopkins? You know, when you leave those schools, you're in very dangerous areas. In fact, Johns Hopkins at orientation, they tell you don't go out this particular gate unless, you know, you have life insurance, because there's no guarantee you're going to make it home. So, but, you know, that can be exciting too. Just go out the other gate. And so, you know, people say, oh, I want to go to New York City. I want to go to Columbia, or I want to go to NYU. Both great schools. I've been to both. I know the areas, but if you've never been to New York City, you better visit first, okay? Because it's different. And then there's cost. I put this in red. Not that you're going to go broke. That's not why I put it in that you're going to go in the red, but it's something you really need to consider. What size do you want? Okay, there's small schools of 2,000, 3,000 people. I consider those to be like giant high schools, okay? But like high schools, some of your high schools have 2,000 people in it. So if you pick a school that has 3,000 people in it, and I'm not saying those aren't good schools, but realize that's a very different experience than if you go to a school like University of Washington, which has 60,000, or OSU, which has 25,000, okay? And everything in between. So I call those 2,000 schools, person schools, tiny schools, okay? And they can have a very personal experience, but they tend to be liberal arts colleges. So if you're looking for an engineering degree, you can't go there. Some of them have pretty good science programs. Public versus private, okay, that's pretty obvious. Stanford's a private school. They have private money. Harvard's a private school. They have private money. Public universities, and I'm a huge fan of public universities, I think because I started off there, but public universities have typically a much greater diversity of people at them, okay? And I think that's, in this day and age, I think that's a really important thing. I can tell you, growing up in a small town in Woonsocket, Rhode Island of 50,000 people, and going to UMass that had 32,000 students at the time, there is not a single period in my life where my life views, my personality, everything else changed. Academically, you learn some new stuff. Yeah, that's it. But, you know, college is a lot more than that. And what you end up picking as a place to go is going to have a big impact, because from 18 to 22 is when you go from being you know, a kid, really, okay, to an adult, and that transition is huge, very big, and where you go has a big effect on it. Okay, if you like specialty programs, so, you know, if you're going to go to, say, a school that has an affiliation of some kind, okay, then you want to make sure you know that, okay? So BYU has an affiliation, okay? Gonzaga has an affiliation, okay? You run around campus, there's a church there and everything else, okay? So make sure you know what those affiliations are, okay? Campus culture. One of the things you can learn from looking at U.S. News and World Report and the National Academy of College Admissions Counselors is what's the diversity like on campus? What are the percentage of underrepresented groups? What are the, you know, where do most of the people come from? Everybody says they'll have people from 50 states and all these different countries, but you want to look at the percentage of those people, okay? And if that's important to you. And I think in these times now, coming from Oregon, which is not really that diverse, honestly, looking for diversity in your college experience is a really a paramount thing right now. I think that's something you really need to think about. And then the rankings, which I told you I'm not really fond on. Okay, so if you look at your list, how do I pick my colleges? If you set up a spreadsheet or just a little list for yourself and start putting down what's important, then that helps to limit stuff. Okay, so with my daughter, she was a swimmer. She swam for many years. So she went to swim at the University of Texas at Austin, and she came back and she said, I want to go there. And I said, no, you're not going there. And then she went to Texas A&M and she said, oh, I really want to go there because they have a great swimming complex. And it's like, no, you're not going to go there. And then she said, I really want to go to UC Santa Barbara because my grandmother, you know, lives in Santa Barbara and I used to work there. And I said, yeah, that's, you know, $60,000 a year. We can't afford that. So there's a lot of things that go into this process. At some point, you're going to have to talk to your parents and talk about that red thing that's on the screen there, which is, okay, mom and dad, what's the story here? Okay. And where can I go and where can I go? So that's going to be a factor at some point too. I want to talk about the community college option. Mara will talk a little bit about this. We have great community colleges here in Oregon. And so we have this something called the Degree Partnership Program, which Mara was part of. So she's going to talk a little bit about that. Here's some information on it. Why do you want to start at a good community college? Well, there's a lot of good reasons. One of them might be financial. There's the Promise program here. I don't have any information on it, but you can look up the Promise program for community colleges and you can basically go for free, okay? Family, if family is really important to you and, you know, at 17 or 18, you're not ready to move away from your family yet, then, you know, then that's another way to move forward in your career and still keep, you know, your family close by you. Background. This is an important one, right? Not every high school has the same degree that would prepare you for college, okay? And so if you have to go to college and say do engineering and you have to start with algebra and math, well, you're paying money, good money, to do basically you know, background information. So why not take some time, do that at community college where you might be able to you'll have good instructors and get that background. So when you go to the university, you're really starting to take the classes that you're paying that money for. Okay. As I said, there's community college has really good teachers. That's their job. Okay. So my job at the university as a faculty member is to teach, do research and do service. Okay. And research is a big, you know, big part of each faculty member's life here at OSU. But at community colleges, their job, their whole life is teaching. Okay, so they teach, they have good teachers, they have smaller class sizes, a little bit more personal things. So if you want a little transition from, especially if you come from a small high school and you want to transition to a big college, community college, I think is a good way to do that. You don't have any idea what you're doing. You know, then that's a good way to explore at little cost. Okay, so C number one, I said there's financial. It's a good way to do some exploration without having to dish out a lot of money. Okay, and there's nothing wrong with spending a year trying to figure out what you want to do before you really get into it. Okay, why not go to community college? Well, friends. Okay, so don't do it because your friends are going there. Okay, that's the only thing. I couldn't think of any really bad reasons to go to a community college, but deciding on where to go to college based on where your friends, where you think your significant other for life is going to be, which won't be your significant other for life about 98% of the time, by the way. So don't make your decisions based on your friends about where to go to college, not only community colleges. Okay, so keep that in mind also. All right, you got to pay for college. So the FAFSA is a free application for federal student aid. You need to start thinking about this, you know, now if you're not doing anything, or at least in fall, because you got to get your parents to buy in and help you do this. Okay, so it's required for almost all financial aid these days. As I put down here, so there's something called the expected family contribution. And this is the thing that's going to drive your parents nuts, okay? Because this number basically says this is how much, based on your taxes, your tax reports, tax returns and everything, we expect you can pay for your kid to go to college. And this always comes out to be 3 or 4 times higher than your parents think they can afford, okay? It's a very strange number, this EFC. It's like the most dreaded thing that parents see when they're looking at paying for colleges. And so in my case, you know, both my wife and I work. We basically, my daughter couldn't get any scholarships or loans or anything. I mean, she could get maybe a little bit for merit, but not for anything else. So that expected family contribution is a killer. And if you remember back when I was talking about Jason and Annie, right? Jason's EFC was really high, which meant that they expected his parents to pay a lot of that money to go to Stanford, and Annie's was really low. And they said, hey, here's $30,000 in scholarships, okay? And a scholarship is different than a loan, right? Loans you need to pay back. So you got to go fill out this FAFSA. It's a little bit of a pain, and you got to get your parents to buy in. So you might, if you're going into your senior year, you probably want to think about this right now, okay? All right. the profile is a college scholarship service, okay, and they can help you see what basically it's another way to apply for scholarships. Okay, so you should go take a look at that and fill it out. Okay, basically you gotta search around everywhere for ways that you can find money to pay for college. Okay, there was this guy Ben Kaplan that went to, I think he was at South Eugene High School years ago. He was called the scholarship coach, and he used to write a column in the Oregonian, which I followed once a week, which is how to go to college almost free. And I'll have a little blurb on him on the next slide. And then you have a college financial aid officer. So you should try to, the schools that you're applying to, they all have different ways of assessing needs. So for instance, private schools know exactly. So for instance, if you're in Oregon, right, Linfield College or Willamette University know exactly how much it costs to go to UO or OSU. And so they will typically give you a scholarship so that it sounds like, oh, we're giving you a $25,000 scholarship to come to Linfield, which is great, except the out-of-pocket expense is going to be the same as if you go to a state school. So people get enamored with the fact that they've got a scholarship, but you have to look at the total cost of going to college when you make those decisions. And so it's important to contact the financial aid offices, make sure you're filling out everything that you need to fill out. Years ago, I don't remember how exactly when, OSU basically, anybody who applied, you didn't have to do a separate application for scholarships. And so a lot of colleges are doing this now so that you don't miss something. Okay, so, but not every school does. So make sure you look at that. Here's Ben. This is a book he wrote. He ended up going to Harvard, I think, eventually. And I went to look him up this week to see what he's up to now. And now he's like consulting on business stuff or whatever. So he went to Harvard, didn't pay too much money. And so this is a pretty good book. You can get it cheap on Amazon right now in other places. And it has some good tips about, how to find scholarships. Not necessary, but, if you like to have something to hold and read, it's a pretty decent book. Okay, so now after you do the applying part and figure out, okay, then you're going to say, why should I pick a college? So, there's two parts to this. One is applying to colleges. Once you've narrowed that down, then you have to see, okay, I get accepted here and there. How do I decide? Okay. So how do you choose your college? Well, first off, you got to be admitted. That's an obvious one. Okay. You got to look at the cost. You got to really, this comes down to for a lot of people to be the biggest factor, right? Is how much is this going to cost me to go to school, and is it reasonable? No matter how much your parents love you, there's limitations on what they can do, right? And so I think you have to make sure you want to balance that off. And then the most important thing, I think, is the Zen factor. So I like this term, okay, because if you think about, the Zen of this and the Zen of that, one of the great books I read when I was traveling and I was young was Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. And there were some really neat concepts in there about quality and the difference between quality and just things that are, okay? So this is the Zen factor. It needs to feel good. If you can at all afford to visit a college campus, now that's a little harder now with the pandemic, because this is the time that a lot of juniors might have been visiting colleges. But as Alyssa will talk about in a minute here, the virtual college tour now becomes something that's really a good way to do things. And it's tough to decide if a college feels good to you. Let me give you another example. There was a guy, Neil, that worked in my lab. He went to Oregon Episcopal School as an not undergraduate, in high school, and he ended up working in my lab in the summer. And from the time I met Neil, he always said, I want to go to Dartmouth. I want to go to Dartmouth. And Dartmouth is in Hanover, New Hampshire. I know the place well. I've been there many times. So I said, why do you want to go there? And he'd tell me all the great things about Dartmouth. So him and his parents took a tour of the East Coast in the summer while he was working for me. And then he came back and I said, well, how's Dartmouth? And he goes, I'm not going there for sure. So I said, well, why not? And he said, when he did his college tour, first off, it's in the middle of nowhere. It's like 3 hours from real civilization. Okay, it's beautiful. It's in the middle of the trees. If you want to do cross country skiing in the winter, it's a great school to go to. If you want to run in the woods, it's really good. But it's not near a big city at all. Okay, and so, but the thing that turned them off was the culture there was very much driven by the Greek system, by fraternities and sororities, and that wasn't something he was into. And so, even though it was a decent school, he said, "I'm not going there." Long story short, he ended up going to Stanford and having a great experience. But I think visiting schools is a really important thing. I mean, Harvey Mudd is a good school, but I would not go to Harvey Mudd unless you visited there, because it's also a strange school. Okay, so, and I'm not putting down Harvey Mudd or Dartmouth, you know, but I think it's important that you know about the schools that you're going to. And so if you can't visit, do everything you can to figure out what college life is like at those schools, okay? And all of those other factors I talked about urban versus rural, you know, how far away do you want to be from your family? Do you want to be able to come home on weekends to do your laundry, or do you only want to come home at Thanksgiving and Christmas? All those kinds of things are important, okay? So here's your game plan. Right now, you're going to develop your talents. Take AP and advanced courses in high school. Okay, remember I told you that 80% of the schools look at those courses. Plus, that saves you money. Okay, if you take the AP course and you pass it, then you get for some schools you get college credit. Now, you won't get college credit at Stanford because they want you to pay for every credit. But at OSU, my daughter came in with over 50, like 55 or 60 credits from high school. And she didn't have to take a lot of these courses like writing 121, which is like composition, because she took, I don't know, AP English Lit or something like that. And that saves us money, that saves her time, okay, and lets her explore other things rather than doing a course that's probably really not as good as your high school class, okay? So don't only take math and science classes, but take those, what was the other one? Geography? No, government, something government it was called. She got some credit for that too. She got credit for chemistry, all those, biology, all those kinds of things, okay? Choose the right school. Oh, by the way, and even if you don't take the AP courses, and if you don't have AP classes in your school, take the highest level you can, because that's going to help you when you get to college to be successful, okay? All right, choose the right school, not prestige, but the best fit for you. Build a great application. Don't do the application, you know, one night when you're bored, okay? Pay some attention to it. Put effort into the essay. The essay is important, and the questions, all schools are a little bit different. Some of them ask you questions. Don't just blow them off. Excuse me, and don't just say, you know, give a rote answer like, I want to go to your school because I think it's the best one in the country, blah, 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 okay? Try to make it personal. Try to make it real, you know. They look at a lot of these and they can tell when somebody's just BSing and when it's a real honest essay. So talk about something you're passionate about. You got to find the money. No doubt, there's no way to do that. Okay, you can't be blind to this. You have to be realistic. So that's, you know, when I went to college, getting back to where I was accepted, right? I was accepted at MIT and Worcester Polytech, UMass, and URI. I went to UMass because I was out of state and they gave me the best scholarship. It ended up costing me almost nothing to go to college, while at MIT and Worcester Polytech, I would have had to pay lots of money, which I didn't have. Okay, we weren't that well off. We had a lot of kids. I had to fund my whole college career. And so that's how I made my choice. Like I said, it was, I think, the best choice I could have made. I don't think, knowing now what WPI and MIT are like, I would not have had anywhere near the life experience that I had at UMass. And so I'm really happy that just by luck, again, just by luck, I went to the school that I think had a huge bearing on the rest of my life, which would have been different, I think, if I went to those other schools. And get off to a good start in college when you go. So once you get there, okay, don't be a passive person. You know, be an active participant in your college. Get involved in student organizations, meet professors. Don't sit in your dorm playing computer games. Okay, get out there, meet people. It's the absolute best time of your life. Okay, and I can say that having had a long life, I can say if I could go back to college, well, if I eliminate like the first 6 months, which were kind of awkward, but after that, it was really the best time of my life in so many ways. So you got a lot to look forward to. Okay. So getting back to it, don't worry, be happy. It's all going to work out for you. All right. Okay. So here's my research group. I wanted to show you, this is our research group in spring. And since we could only do Zoom meetings, every week we would meet. The thing I wanted to point out here is, well, let me see. Here's Brooke, here's Mar, and Alyssa is someplace. Where's Alyssa? Where's Alyssa? I can't find her. She's in here somewhere. Where is, oh, there she is. Sorry, there she is. Okay, so those are the three people that are going to be talking to you, and they were all part of my research group in the last year. Okay, they're all undergraduates. So of all the about 20 people that are on here, there's only one graduate student. Merit is the only graduate student. So I have something like 19 undergraduates working in my lab. And that's, I think, a great opportunity for them to do research and to get involved. Okay, and they're all great people. You can see we have a really good group, and I really do enjoy doing work with undergraduates. So I want to pass this on to Alyssa first, and she's from Banks High School, bioengineer, and you already heard about Mar and Brooke. Okay, so I think we'll start with Alyssa, and I will stop sharing my screen so you can see Alyssa. There she is. Okay.
Hi everybody. I'll skip aside. My name's Alyssa, and today I'm just going to kind of talk to you guys about my college selection path. Personally, my college selection path was all over the place. I had no idea where I wanted to go. Starting the summer going into my junior year, my dad told me, hey, you should probably start thinking about going to college. And I was like, Dad, I have 2 more years. It's fine. Like, I have time. But he was right. And I had, like I said, no idea where I wanted to go. But I kind of knew what I wanted to do from all of those tests that they make you take, like where you enter your interests and then it spits out like, oh, you should be this. And every single time I got spit out that I should be a bioengineer. And you know what? That's what I ended up going into. So I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew that I wanted to stay on the West Coast. I'm from a super small town, Banks, Oregon. Probably nobody has heard of it. But I knew that I wanted to go to a bigger school because I was in such a small school with only 400 kids, and I wanted to get out of that atmosphere and throw myself into a new one. So with all of that, I narrowed down my schools. I applied to about 6 schools: Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, UW, Texas A&M, CU Boulder, Seattle Pacific University, because they had sent me something in the mail that said they would give me a large amount of money to go there. It was one of the private schools, so like Dr. Skip was saying, they knew how much a regular school costs, so I think they give out large scholarships so that you can go there for a normal price. And then the last 2 were Oregon State, because that was kind of my backfall, and then University of Pacific, which I had a softball, an offer to play softball there. So yeah, I really didn't want to go to Oregon State at all at the beginning because I've lived in Oregon my whole life, and I just wanted to get out, and I wanted to maybe go somewhere with better weather. But yeah, so I played travel softball growing up, and luckily for me, we went to a lot of places. We had a tournament down near Cal Poly, so while I was there, I went and visited Cal Poly. I absolutely fell in love with the campus. As I was walking around, I was like, wow, I can really, really see myself here, and thought I was just going to be the happiest person ever at Cal Poly. Fast forward, then that summer, I also had a softball tournament in Colorado, so I went to go visit CU Boulder. And again, I fell in love with the campus and just being surrounded by all the mountains. I just thought it was really beautiful. It reminded me of home. And I was like, wow, I could see myself here too. I drove to visit UW in Seattle Pacific just because I live in Oregon, so it was really close, but I was not impressed by either of those campuses. They had a day at Seattle Pacific University where you could spend the night on campus, and I went with the intent of spending the night and like seeing myself there. But as I was walking around that campus that day, I just knew that that school wasn't for me, and I actually opted out of staying the night. So I left that day with my parents, and we went to go to UW, and we got to walk around the campus there, and I just didn't like it. It was so huge. Like, I knew I wanted to go to a big school, but it just seemed, everything seemed so far away from each other, and I just wanted something a little bit closer because I saw where the dorms were and I saw where campus was, and I was like, there is no way I am walking that far to class every single day. And then what happens when I live off of campus? I'm going to be even farther. So those were pretty much, I X those off my list because I just didn't feel right there. With that, I also said I applied to Texas A&M. Clearly, I live a little far from Texas, so for that school, I actually did a virtual tour, like Skip had mentioned. I think a big thing with virtual tours, if you're going to take that route, especially now, is yeah, they make everything look so great and prestigious and wonderful. Like, they're not going to show you a bad picture, but pretty much every school has a virtual tour of their dorms, the inside. And if you look online and you look at each dorm they have and try to do a virtual tour for each of those dorm rooms, then you can see you can tell what dorms are newer and what dorms are older and kind of get a feel for that. And then I would just focus on, when you're doing the tours, looking at the actual campus and what the atmosphere is like. Like you said, do you like trees? Well, there's no trees, it's a desert. For me, I was really interested in going to ASU at one point in my life. And I had visited the campus because I was visiting a friend down there, and it was very desertish. And they had mentioned that they have a lot of snakes, and I really just cannot do snakes. So I was like, you know what? I think I would be a little freaked out walking to campus every day if there's snakes on campus. So I was like, yeah, maybe this isn't really the place for me. So that narrowed down my school list to 3 schools. I ended up having Oregon State, Cal Poly, and CU Boulder, the 2 that I really fell in love with, and then Oregon State as my backfall because I knew I would get in-state tuition. I knew they had along the lines of my major, and I knew that we could afford it, you know? So I ended up applying to Cal Poly, and when I got the letter back, I didn't end up getting accepted. I was really bummed out, but I think it worked out for the best because I ended up here. And then for CU Boulder, what happened was it costed like $60,000 a year to go there. I tried to convince my parents. I made a PowerPoint to convince them why I should go there, and it just didn't work out. So I ended up going to Oregon State, and I've actually been really happy here. And now I work with Skip in the lab, and I've gotten some really great opportunities here, and I think it just worked out for the best. But yeah, with that, I'll pass it on to Mar so she can talk a little bit about her path.
Hi everyone, my name is Mar. I use they, them pronouns. I am a first year chemical engineering major, so I'm just a little young one. Last year I was in high school, just like you all. First, just to start things off, so you all can get to know me a little better, I want to tell you a story. This is something that happened while I was in my freshman year of high school. So probably a lot younger than you all right now, but you all remember. I need to stop saying you all. So when I was in my freshman year of high school, I was a dancer. So it was Valentine's Day. Everyone was giving each other Valentines. And this one girl gave me this exquisitely folded paper pyramid that had little M&Ms inside. It was red and white paper. It was the cutest thing ever. And that was when I finally admitted to myself, I'd had a crush on this girl for 4 years. I remember how many times I just walked through the hallways of my school saying to myself, I have a crush on a girl, because it was the ultimate taboo for me. Now, fast forward a month or two, I didn't know that the Valentine had candy in it. I left it on my desk in my room. Every time I looked at it, I had those little jittery, fluttery feelings in my stomach. I got ants in my room. I had to get rid of it. But now you're going to wonder, what does this have to do with college choices? And so one of the most important things for me when I was choosing my college was choosing somewhere with a queer affirming program. So as Skip mentioned, I went to Lane Community College. They have a beautiful gender equity center. They have an active GSA. They always have coffee and tea and snacks there. It's a wonderful, affirming place. Then the other college that I'm going to is OSU. And OSU has a beautiful Pride Center. And they have a gender affirming clothing swap. They call it their drag closet down in the basement. And so that was when I truly fell in love with OSU, was when I visited their Pride Center. And I found a oversized denim jacket that said Cabaret Uber Gay. I still love that jacket to this day. Another thing that I think you need to know about me to really understand me as a person is I struggle with mental illness. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my lowest point. This was my senior year of high school. I was dealing with untreated anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, and on top of that, I was in an abusive relationship. So, hands down, that was the lowest point in my life. And guess what? That was also when I was supposed to be making all of these college decisions. So that being said, I had grades and a work ethic that could get me anywhere I wanted. But I was dealing with some other stuff. So I'm going to pose a quick rhetorical question. Did community college save my life? Probably. So community college gave me a chance to stay with my current therapist, who I still see, for another year, and to stay with my parents, where I was stable, to work on myself and my mental health. And now I'm happy to tell you that I'm in a much better place than I was senior year of high school. And through my community college path, that's when I learned the well-kept secret of community college, and that's that the teachers there are amazing. So I brought a little something I want to show you all. This was my project in Engineering 101. When I first walked into that room, let me tell you, I was pretty intimidated. In a class of 40, there were 3 of us who weren't cisgender guys. So that was pretty intimidating for me, but my teacher helped me talk through that and get over myself a bit. That class had a wonderful atmosphere of innovation, and my professor, Daniel Harboe, was an ex-Army engineer. He was supportive of my name, pronouns, my mental illness experiences, and he helped me achieve my full potential. So, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to my trebuchet. Let's fix that camera angle. To give you an idea of how it works, I'm going to give you a dry launch. So as you may be familiar with, the trebuchet is an ancient French invention that uses weights and counterweights to launch a payload. It's like a more sophisticated catapult. So our invention uses rubber bands to similarly launch a payload. I'm just going to dry launch it for you because I'm in the comfort of my own home and I can't very well go launching eggs, which is honestly what it's made for. It's made to launch eggs. All right, safety off. You ready for this? That's the most compelling argument I can make as to why you all should go to community colleges. So not only is it cheaper, as Skip was talking about, but there's excellent teaching, much more one-on-one attention from your professors, and it's a wonderful place for innovation and improving yourself. Thank you very much. That's what I have to say. And I am an ACE alum, so I could spend hours talking about how my ASE experience prepped me for college and showed me what I want to do with my life, but I've hit on all of the main topics that I meant to talk about today, so thank you for listening.
Hi everyone, so my name is Brooke Adaviri and I just finished up my first year here at OSU as a mechanical engineering major. So my path to college was a little bit different. I've grown up here at, in Corvallis and went to Corvallis High School and practically grew up on OSU campus because both of my parents work there. When I was applying to colleges, I definitely knew that I wanted to stay in Oregon and go to a school that had an honors college because I really wanted to have a small school experience within a large university to get the best of both worlds. But at the time, I didn't really know what I wanted to major in. So I decided the two main schools that I knew I was going to be deciding between were OSU and U of O. I was in between engineering, which OSU obviously has a good school for, and architecture, which U of O has a good program for. So I ended up getting into both OSU and U of O and their honors programs, but I ended up getting a better scholarship for OSU, which actually worked out perfectly because around that same time I decided I wanted to pursue engineering. A large part of this decision was because around the time I was like looking into colleges and stuff, I had a major surgery on my jawbone, and I got to see a lot of like the medical equipment and the technology that went into my surgery, and I found myself really fascinated by the design of it and just like seeing it and how it helped me so much, and wanted to really be a part in the future of like being able to design things that could also help people like it helped me. So that's basically why I decided engineering over architecture, which definitely helped me choose OSU. So once I got to OSU, I was really happy with all the opportunities that are here. One of the best opportunities that I have personally encountered here was research through a program called STEM Leaders, which I was able to get involved in at the beginning of this year. So fall term, there was a 1-credit class that I took that just kind of got me in touch with like the basics of research and what it is to like be in contact with faculty and the basics. And I was really fortunate enough to be able to get the opportunity to work in Dr. Skip's lab through this program. And overall, I've been really happy here at OSU because I think that this research opportunity that I got, I have a lot of friends who have gone to a lot of other colleges across the US, and I think that OSU is pretty unique in the way that a lot of first-year students are able to get these opportunities. So I feel really happy here, and that has personally made OSU really worth it to me. So yeah, that's basically how I chose my schooling and how it's turned out, and it's been great so far, and I look forward to the next 3 years. So yeah.
All right, great. Thanks, Brooke, Alyssa, and Mar. And I I don't want to say that OSU is the only school you can go to. Obviously, these three folks work in my lab, so they went to OSU. They are at OSU, but I think that all three of those have fairly unique experiences. Hopefully, some of you can relate to those experiences, and I think the thing that I wanted to point out was that the deciding the thing that makes them all happy about their choices is that they're comfortable where they are. Okay, and I think that's an important thing, is that they're comfortable. And sometimes decisions are made for you. You know, you don't get admitted, you can't afford to go someplace, they don't have the major you want. These are all opportunities, and the opportunities are what you make of them. And so, you know, as far as research goes, I think one of the things you want to look at some of these schools is, are there research opportunities for young students? You know, Brooke and Mar were both first year students, right? And they both started doing research right away. And I think that's another thing that really helps you engage. And so, you know, we talk a lot about retention. You don't want to go to a school and leave. I mean, if it doesn't feel right, you should leave. But you know, you want to go there and you want to say, yeah, I'm happy with this choice. Okay, and it'll take a while. You gotta work into a little bit. You got to make friends. Everybody's a little bit different, but just if you do good prep, if you do some of the things that I've talked about and you listen to what these folks have said, I think you'll be in good shape to make a good college choice. I think we have a few minutes. I'll let Libby decide how long we have, but if there's some questions, I don't know where they are, but if you have any questions, you can put them in, I guess, the Q&A for either me or any one of the students, and I think we have a few minutes to answer them.
Definitely time for questions. So you have current students and Dr. Skip here, so please share some questions while you have them. I'll give you a few minutes to think, everybody.
Having taught the whole last term in the Zoom platform, the absolute worst part of it is the interaction with the students and questions. If you look at the data, if you ask us for questions, they said you have to wait 40 seconds or so is the average time you need to wait for somebody to formulate a question and ask it in a Zoom format. And 40 seconds of silence in Zoom is like an eternity, right? And so one of the things I really miss in Zoom presentations is this back and forth and question and answer things. So I'm just biding time while I give you a little bit of time to think about if you have any questions. And if you don't, that's fine. You have our email address. If you want to talk to any of the students more personally, like on email or whatever, let me know and I can pass their emails along to you. I should have put them in on the page, but I didn't. Actually, I can do that. I'll check with them and see if it's okay first, but I can put their emails in the PowerPoint.
It looks like we have a few.
What?
So Stacy asked, did your future grad school plans inform your undergrad choice, or should it? And my answer is yes. I've had a Berkeley dream since I was 12 years old. And I realized that since I plan to, like Skip, stay in academia for a significant portion of my life, there isn't any rush. And so I can make the most financially responsible choice right now, which is to go to community college and OSU. And that doesn't mean that I'm saying no to those lofty out-of-state dreams. I'm just saving them for grad school.
So one of the questions is, do you have any tips for a successful college application essay? I haven't done mine in a long time. I don't do any of you folks have a answer to that one?
Just from what I remember, I think a great application essay, when you're thinking about it, just like make sure it's like true to yourself and who you are. Like they really want to get to know like you as a student and what you've been through and what you're like, because this is what they're basing off of admitting you into their school. So just be true to yourself and be honest. A lot of kids have a lot of pressure to make their essay like the most unique circumstance ever. It doesn't have to be unique. It just needs to be true to who you are, I feel like. Brooke?
Yeah, just like adding on to that, another tip is give yourself lots of time to work on it. Start brainstorming like the summer before. What I did was I had a Google Docs, and I would just like work on it whenever, like for over the period of a few different months, and like I would just add to it whenever I got a new idea. And I also had like my teachers look over it, and friends, and that definitely helped a lot.
Yeah, another one, has visiting a professor in person influenced your college experience? I'll let you guys.
May I answer that?
Yes, you may.
I have the shortest funny story to tell. The professor that I visited was actually Dr. Skip Rochefort. It was for my ASE experience. It was my first time in the lab. And I actually ended up fainting. So half of our time in the lab was just me getting me water, elevating my head, making sure I was all right. But I got the position, so that's what matters. And so Skip has most certainly influenced my career in a positive way. He introduced me to chemical engineering, which is my passion. He introduced me to all of the ways that I can make the world a better place through chemical engineering. Just to give a quick shout out to a couple of the projects that I've seen, that you can make any plastic can be transformed back into its raw materials, which is oil, if you pyrolyze it, which means bringing it to the right temperatures without oxygen. Another polymer application is in feminine hygiene products. So
yeah, there's a bunch of
questions. Broadened my atmospheres. I've said enough.
Yeah, I'm looking at some of the questions. I'm going to do some of the easy ones. So somebody asked us, OSU have a good nuclear engineering program? Yes, we do. We have one of the top ones in the country. So if that's what you're looking for, then OSU is a good choice. We have a reactor on campus. There's two in Oregon, actually. Reed College has a reactor, and so do we. I think we're number 13 in the country in terms of nuclear engineering. So yeah, it's a good school. Let's see, let me see. Would you suggest a very specific undergrad major or a more general one? Can a specific one be applied to as many places? Can a specific one be applied to as many places as a general one? That's a pretty broad question. You heard Alyssa say she really was stuck on bioengineering when she was looking at places, and Brooke was looking, I think, at engineering in general. So I think what you want to do is you want to make sure wherever you go, just be honest with yourself. What are your interests, right? And you're not going to know, I don't think, who knows what's going to happen in 5 years, right? This might be a robot talking to you, I don't know. But, or a robot driving you to school or driving your bus or whatever. But I think you want to pick a school that has things you're interested in, and I think Brooke pointed out, architecture, we don't have at OSU. If she wanted to do architecture, she has to go to U of O. They have a great program, which is actually the one my wife got her master's degree in. So that's an important part of that. Yeah. Do you guys have anything to add on that?
Personally, I don't think it matters as much, as long as it's, like Skip said, something that along the lines you're interested in. For instance, when I was looking at schools with biology or with bioengineering, I knew I also liked biology. So I was kind of looking at schools if I thought that I might be happy at that campus that also offered biology, because I could twist biology probably into somewhat an engineering field, just maybe not as much involved as engineering as I would like. So just be honest with yourself to what you like.
Hey, Brooke, here's one for you, Brooke. I was just reading through these. There's a lot of questions, but this is one specifically for you. Is it weird to go to the same university where your parents work?
I mean, it is. Yeah, at first it was, but like, I don't know. I feel like the weirdest thing is like running into my parents like across campus on my way to classes. Like, I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I've like turned the corner and gone the other way. But at the same time, it's kind of nice being so close to home. Like I definitely have had some rough times, especially first term. And so it was really nice being able to come home when I needed to.
Yeah, my daughter went to OSU, and I can say I hardly ever saw her. The only time I really saw her is if she needed money. She would find me, come into my, I'd be sitting in my office and I'd say, okay, what do you want? I need some money. So she was pretty good at avoiding me. But she was in public health and I was in engineering. So it's a big enough campus. We never saw each other.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
There's
so-
a,
go ahead.
there's a question from Mar as well.
Okay.
Oh, is there?
What is something about your early college experience that ACE prepared you well for?
Mostly I'm going to address two questions in one here. And that's how do you start finding and developing your passions in high school? And so that's how I'm going to say ASE helped me most in prepping me for college, was helping me find a passion in chemical engineering. Another question that I have is, what is the outdoor culture like at OSU? And I think Skip would be a better person to answer this question, but I highly recommend hiking Mary's Peak.
Yeah. One of them is, there's a couple of questions in there about majors and minors. And here's the way to look at this, right? When you finish your major, you can leave, right? You can have as many minors as you want, and or double majors or whatever. But just understand, everything adds time to your time at school. Okay, so for instance, with somebody asked particularly about business or MBA. If you're interested in business and engineering, what I always tell students is you have to sign up for the business minor at OSU. Otherwise, you can't take certain classes.